I want to spend some time now talking about the concept of a VPN. Okay, so you've seen this drawing before. In this case, you'll notice we've got our Microsoft domain here. We got our client computers. We got a file server. We could have other servers involved. We got domain controllers and all that fun stuff. But imagine a situation where we have somebody who is outside the environment, and this person needs to be able to remote into our environment and get access to resources. Okay, now back in the 90s, the way people would do this generally is they would just open up all their ports on their router, their firewall, or whatever. And a lot of companies didn't even have firewalls in the 90s, and then people could just connect right in and access the file server and all that. That's really dangerous. I remember one of the very first companies I ever worked for in IT in the 90s, I was able to share a folder out on my computer in my office, and it had a public IP address, and I was able to remote from home. I was able to dial up to my ISP from home and connect into that computer. That's super dangerous nowadays, right? If you don't ever want to expose all of your stuff internally like that. So the way we do that is we're going to allow people to get in from the outside world, but we need a way to police that. Now, the way you do that, if you're talking traditional Microsoft here, the way we would do that traditionally in Microsoft is we would set up a server called a RAS server. RAS servers can support VPNs. You also can do this thing called direct access as well, which is another secure way to do it. But this RAS server is going to allow someone to connect in securely. Okay, and even if you had somebody sniffing traffic, like let's say that this guy right here, he's going to be this little guy I'm going to draw. He's going to be our hacker. All right, so let's give him some devil horns and make him look mean, right? All right, so here's our little bad guy. Here's his little devil tail. Okay, all right, maybe I'm getting a little carried away here, but anyway, that's our hacker. So what we're trying to do is we don't want, if this person is connecting in the internet, we don't want this person to eavesdrop on what your user is doing coming through here. So the great thing about it is if you establish a VPN connection, it's called a virtual private network tunnel, and that VPN connection is going to encrypt all of your traffic. Okay, so what would happen is you would only open the firewall here to allow this VPN connection to come in, and then from there, the person could connect to the file server, talk to domain controllers if it needs to, all that stuff. The person will have to authenticate. You could combine it with smart cards and biometrics. You can do all sorts of things to secure that, but that's what this tunnel is going to do. So even if this person is eavesdropping, on what you're saying, they're not going to be able to understand all of this stuff that's going back and forth because it's all going to be encrypted. Okay. Now, how does Microsoft go about doing that? Microsoft has what are called VPN tunneling protocols, all right? And I'm going to put these in order on the screen in oldest to newest. The first one is called PPTP, and this is the oldest one. It stands for Point-to-Point Tunneling Protocol. This one was created in a joint venture between Microsoft and Cisco back in the mid-90s. It was the very first protocol that supports it. The problem with it is that this one does not provide, integrity or authenticity for your traffic. That means that if this hacker was to do what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, and they got between you and the inside world, they could trick you into thinking you're talking to the inside world, and then they could alter what's being said. Your information does get encrypted, which is good, but it doesn't provide the level of security that you would want in a high security environment. So you really shouldn't use PPTP, okay, because it doesn't provide the integrity. It's vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks. So in Windows 2000, in the year 2000, Microsoft released Layer 2 tunneling protocol, and it actually wasn't just Microsoft, it was Cisco as well. Cisco and Microsoft worked on this one together, okay. So this one uses what's called IPsec, which is very secure. IPsec is going to provide the encryption, integrity, all that. The only downside to L2TP is you have to open up a couple extra things on your firewall to get it to work, and it's also not the fastest protocol out there, but that one has been around now for 20 years, over 20 years. So then in the year 2008, Microsoft came out with SSTP. This is the Secure Sockets Tunneling Protocol. And what this is going to let you do is it uses SSL or it can also use TLS, which is newer and more secure for its encryption. Now, this is the fastest option of VPN protocols. Of all three of these, is going to be the fastest option, and it's very, very secure. Now, there is a downside to all three of these protocols. These protocols here, if you were connected in across a VPN, and let's say you were copying a file across the network or something, and let's say you're 99% done copying that file, and then maybe your connection drops just for a few seconds. Well, guess what? You've lost your connection. You're now going to have to reestablish that whole connection again. So they do not support the ability to auto reconnect, these three. But in the year 2010, when Windows 7 came out, Microsoft also released another VPN protocol called IKEv2, which stands for Internet Key Exchange version 2. Okay, basically it uses IPsec, okay, IPsec, Internet Protocol Security, and it provides all the encryption and authentication and integrity. It's not vulnerable to replays or any of that. And it supports what's called VPN Reconnect, which is really cool. If you lost your connection, it'll auto reconnect, and you won't actually lose any files or any of that stuff that you're connecting into. Okay, so you have a good bit of support with Microsoft. This is the PPTP is the oldest, and then all the way down to IKEv2. Now, IKEv2 is a little slower than SSTP, but you have all these features with it. You can do always on VPN, all that. So you can it'll detect always on VPN will detect basically whether if you're a laptop user and you're on the on-prem network or you're outside. It can turn the VPN on when you're on the outside if you're a laptop user, and then if you bring your laptop to the office, it doesn't have to use the VPN. So you get a lot of functionality out of that. Okay. All right. So hopefully that gives you a decent understanding of VPN. In this next little example, I'm going to go into my virtual machine coming up here, and we're going to pretend like we have a VPN server set up in our company, vpn.examlabpractice.com. Let's say that server has been exposed out on the internet so that we can get to it. When I say exposed, I mean that you can hit this address over the internet through this firewall, okay, and get to this VPN server. All right, and I'm going to configure the Windows 10 computer to connect into that.